Josh Giddey still hasn't signed an agreement with the Chicago Bulls. Should the Bulls be worried? We as fans should be worried. We're going to talk deep into this conversation.
This is your home for all things Chicago Bulls. Join the conversation. You're listening to Chicago Bulls Nation.
What is going on, Bulls Nation? So there's two camps when it comes to Josh Giddey. The guys who's like, hey, he deserves it, pay the man. And then there's a camp where, no, pay him 20 mil. I am somewhat in between here. I like Josh Giddey. I think the Bulls should retain him for the right price. Now, there's two camps in here too. Like Josh Giddey's camp supposedly is asking for 30 mil. And then I don't know what the Bulls are offering him. But obviously, and as they said, they're like a Gulf of Mexico apart. So I don't know what exactly that means. Is the Bulls offering him 20 mil? If that is the case, I think that's a slap in the face for Josh Giddey. Like, he is not 2 million better, only 2 million better than Patrick Williams. Unless the Bulls are admitting that Patrick Williams should have only signed 13 and he's now or 10, and now he's twice as much better than Pat. But Josh Giddey is not responsible for the front office's mistake by offering Patrick Williams 18 million a year. That's not his mistake. Patrick Williams is a massive mistake by the front office. I'm only glad that maybe the front office have learned from the Patrick Williams mistake and also the Zach LaVine mistake. And by that I mean offering them more than what they should. Now, what I feel is a fair number for Josh Giddey, whether he views it or not, I would say is around 25 million tops. I think maybe 27, if you're really pushing it. But I think 25 would be a good starting point. And I'm basing it off of Jabari Smith when he signed with the Rockets, when he did an extension. He only signed 5 for 25. With Josh Giddey, a 5 for 25 fifth team option would be an ideal, because there's, Josh Giddey's a good, I wouldn't say centerpiece, but a good starting point for this Bulls moving forward. But what you don't want in this new CBA is just keeps on handing out 30 mil. Just because Orlando gave Jalen Suggs 30 mil or Toronto giving Emmanuel Quickley 30 million doesn't mean you gotta copy what those guys did. I think they're also overpaid. The only difference between those two franchises is that they have a clear number one player. For Orlando, it's Paolo Banchero. And we already know Jalen Suggs complement his number one player because he plays really good defense, can score as well. And as far as Toronto, I don't know why they gave Emmanuel Quickley that much money. But they also have a clear number one player in Scotty Barnes. My point is, we don't have a clear number one yet. I think Josh Giddey has a better upside than those two guys. But at the same time, it's easier to pay or overpay a number two option when you do have a clear number one option. Kind of like what happened to Chris Middleton. It's easy to give a guy 30-something million because you got Giannis behind him. Now, at that time, it was Chris Middleton and Zach LaVine. And the trend was giving a max contract because the new CBA hasn't come yet. So what happens is you give somebody a max contract. It may be the Clippers, who didn't mind, or the Warriors at that time didn't mind paying the luxury tax, can always trade for those guys and pay the luxury tax. That was the mentality of the Bulls when they signed Zach LaVine for the max contract, is that, hey, if things doesn't work out, we can always trade this guy, and a contending team would happily pay the luxury tax for him. That was before the new CBA. Now with the new CBA, you're going to ask yourself, if I give Josh Giddey 30 mil and he doesn't play well for the first 2 years of that contract, can I get rid of that 30 million without attaching an asset? And I think the answer is no. Look at Patrick Williams. By all accounts, the 18 mil is it's only 3 million more than the mid-level. Yet you cannot get rid of Patrick Williams right now. I'm not saying Josh Giddey is going to suck at the same level of Patrick Williams. But that 30 mil is significantly higher than almost double of what Patrick Williams is making. So with like I said, with a new CBA, you got to make sure if you sign a player, and this is not your guy, like this is not a Giannis or Luka or SGA, that contract needs to be tradable. Look at the Indiana Pacers. The game has shifted that depth is really important now. Now, since we don't have a number one player yet, if there comes a time where we find ourselves being able to acquire a number one guy, you gotta be able to do that. And you can only do that if you have flexibility. So signing, let's say if you sign Josh Giddey 30 mil, does that mean now you're gonna have to sign Kobe 30 mil to retain him as well? Let's say you want to retain him. And then now are you gonna sign Kuminga for 30 mil as well? Is that gonna be your baseline now for guys who are, like with potential? I don't know if that's a winning combination right there, but I like what the Bulls is doing here because it just shows growth from the front office that they are willing to hold this out. To be quite honest with you, Josh Giddey doesn't have much of a choice this year. It's either he signs what the Bulls is offering him or sign the qualifying offer. Now, signing the qualifying offer on a bad team like Chicago and also a coach like Billy Donovan is a big risk if you're a player. Because what if he benches you again? What if Billy you sign the qualifying offer, you're betting on yourself if you're Josh Giddey. You know what? I'm going to put up good numbers. I'm going to show the Chicago Bulls that they made a mistake by not giving me 30 mil. And then all of a sudden the Bulls start losing and Billy Donovan starts benching him in the fourth quarter again. Now you have no market next year. Now your value has depreciated. Now you can't even sign 25 because now you're viewed now as the Josh Giddey from the Thunder. Josh Giddey, make no mistake, has a good second half of the season. But the first half, let's not forget, he was getting benched. Billy Donovan's system now is like the Phoenix Suns system, which players are going to have good numbers because of the up and down nature of and chucking up shots and playing fast. That is the nature of this offense. And hey, we all know that offense that the Phoenix Suns back then were playing, with Steve Nash, they got players paid like Leandro Barbosa, Boris Diaw. But that doesn't mean that you do it this season. There's a lot of players within this team, like even Trey Jones, who's going to benefit from that up and down because the numbers are going to be there. So the Bulls need to realize what they're trying to build here. And I think they do. That is why they're in the holdout here. But if Josh Giddey ever signs the 30 mil, I wouldn't be upset about it. It's not the end of the world. I think that's still a pretty fair deal for the guy. But if you're the Bulls, you're trying to use this leverage that you have now. Because 30 mil is just about right. I think 25 is a good number. That's a number we're like, all right, we're comfortable with that. Jabari Smith, cool. 30 mil is kind of like you're a small market that you're just you're overpaying for a free agent. But let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.